continue to support Israel having a qualitative military edge, the ability to defend themselves and offer deterrence.
Democratic Senator Cory Booker is committed, as you just heard, to maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge, which I was approximately today years old when I found out is a real law that requires the United States to arm Israel more than we arm our other allies, including other Middle Eastern countries. We'll get to the details of that in just a moment, but Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so Cory Booker is a giant sellout who works for Israel. I just wanted to make that super clear. Number 2 is why? Why do we have to have them have a military edge over all of their neighbors who they're viciously attacking?
Imagine saying that you want to maintain a qualitative military edge for a country that's been carrying out a genocide, that's been stealing land from its neighbors, that's now leveling southern Lebanon. I mean, imagine that's your priority. Maintaining the genocidal country's qualitative military edge.
No, it's this is a real analogy, and they can catch feelings over it if they like. And yes, obviously the Holocaust was on a different scale, but genocides are also important. And so it is like saying, no, we have to make sure the Germans have a qualitative military edge as they're taking the Sudetenland and going into Poland. And the Germans said the same exact thing. We're just doing it for self-defense. We have to protect ourselves. And if our senators at the time were like, we have to protect Germany, not Sudetenland, not the Poles, not the Jews, not anyone, but the Germans, and we have to make sure they have a military advantage, we would have been like, are you nuts? And I say to Cory Booker now, are you nuts?
So Booker was speaking to Kristen Welker, and she asked if Booker would support a temporary ceasefire deal that would not in any way address Iran's nuclear material. And Booker, interestingly, kept dodging the question. We can't show you all of his filibustering because it would take up the entire show, but here's the taste.
I wonder, for the sake of bringing these hostilities to an end, would you support a short-term deal with Iran that leaves the broader issue of Iran's nuclear program to be solved in later negotiations?
So remember, the Strait of Hormuz was not closed at the beginning of this conflict. This conflict has been a massive disaster, and Donald Trump himself is an embarrassment on the world stage. I hear it from allies all around the world. He has got us into a trap, and we're effectively in a stalemate with Iran. And the people that are paying the price is American military.
If that way out included a short-term deal that punted dealing with the nuclear program, is that something you would back?
Well, remember, I've been leading in the Senate with a handful of my other colleagues to end this conflict. That's what we're demanding. I am sorry that the United States Senate, Republicans who are leading that, have done nothing truly to hold President Trump accountable, to provide sufficient oversight or any checks and balances.
What exactly has Senator Booker done to try to end this war?
Oh, he's been leading on it.
He's been leading on it?
Yeah, because he said it on TV.
He's been leading a bunch of nonsense filibusters to nowhere.
Yeah, I mean.
Literally, he did a filibuster that had no point to it.
No, that was one of the funniest things that's ever happened. It was the most symbolic thing of the Democratic establishment that I've ever seen. He did a 25-hour record-breaking filibuster over literally nothing. There was no bill being discussed. I mean, he could have waited for a bill because there's plenty of outrageous bills, including the giant tax cuts for the rich, etc. But all of his donors are rich, and all of his donors love all those bills. So he didn't want to filibuster any real bill. He wanted to filibuster fluff and nothing and air. I mean, that is Democratic leadership 101. Okay, so on this, did you notice he never answered the question? Because he can't say, since he serves AIPAC, and AIPAC is his best friend, according to him, the guy who runs AIPAC, he can't say, well, we could leave without ending their nuclear enrichment program, because then he'll be a naughty boy and he'll have to get spanked. And so that's why he avoided that question like the plague, because he secretly agrees with trying to end their enrichment program. So the only thing he's allowed to do is attack Trump and the Republicans. The donors go, good boy, keep them divided, okay? but don't say anything substantive badly about the war, okay? Just say the war is bad and it's all Trump's fault. But if anyone says it's Israel's fault, no way, attack them and call them an anti-Semite and try to ruin them. Yeah, Cory, we see all these games, man. Like, you're from the 1990s, brother. You're still playing these games.
Totally.
Like, we can't see what you're doing and we don't see all the money you're taking and all the ass you're kissing.
Well, Israel bought 5,000, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, now Welker pressed him on military aid to Israel. Let's see how he handled that.
The US, of course, is partnering with Israel with this war. You joined a record number of Democrats, 40 senators, who recently voted against sending more arms to Israel. A similar effort a year ago only got 15 Democratic votes, for example. Are you now opposed to the US sending arms to Israel going forward?
Let's be clear. I'm opposed to a reckless war that has made the United States and Israel less safe, as well as our other Arab allies. I will not support arms to the United States or any of our allies, including Israel, in the context of a war that is endangering our national security and Israel's. I continue to support our US military being the strongest in the world. I continue to support Israel having a qualitative military edge, the ability to defend themselves and offer deterrence. But in the context of this war, I will not support more military armaments to conduct what I think is a disaster that's endangering American lives, Israeli lives, and as we see in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, our regional allies as well.
Wait a minute. Wow. That's the first time I heard the entire statement in context. So just to be clear, Senator Booker had absolutely no problem with the mass slaughter campaign carried out by the Israelis against the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Yep.
Just to be clear about that. So apparently Trump is calling for unity after another violent incident. But the way this gets covered depends on who's trying to spin it and who's willing to call it out. On the right, the framing turns Trump into some kind of heroic victim, a uniquely important figure being targeted because he's just that powerful. On the left, the focus is on Trump's long, obvious relationship with violent rhetoric and the political climate he helped create. Same event, completely different narrative. And that is exactly why I recommend Ground News. It's a website and app that pulls together reporting from across the political spectrum so you can compare headlines side by side, see the bias distribution of the coverage, check the factuality ratings of the sources, and even see who owns the outlets behind the reporting. Because once you start looking at coverage that way, it becomes a lot easier to see when the media isn't informing you, it's managing your perception. Ground News also has a blind spot feed, which highlights stories that one side of the political spectrum is barely covering at all, so you're not trapped inside the version of events your media bubble wants you to accept. If you're tired of being fed somebody else's narrative, I genuinely recommend Ground News. Go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code to get 40% off Ground News Vantage Plan. So do you guys understand how much of a farce the identity politics is by these establishment Democrats who purport to care about the lives of Black and brown people, as they like to put it? Does that look like or sound like an individual who cares about the lives of Black and brown people? Seriously.
Yeah, so she asked him, should we stop sending arms to Israel? He said, let me be clear, and then wasn't clear at all.
Wasn't clear at all.
Then he immediately diverted to, I'm against this war. But she didn't ask you about the war. She asked you about weapons to Israel. And then he kept we shouldn't send weapons to Israel or anyone else in the middle of this war. In other words, when it's not about this war, yes, I'm gonna send them weapons. But in case you weren't clear enough, then he came in and said, yeah, they have to have a qualitative military edge, qualitative. Okay, so two things about that before we give you more facts on it. Number one, it's a genocidal government. And okay, forget the German analogy. How about when the Serbs are slaughtering the people in Kosovo or Bosnia? If we said, no, the Serbs must have a military advantage, or the Turks were doing to the Armenians, the Ottomans must have a military advantage. Why? They're in the middle of a genocide. Why would we want to guarantee their military advantage? But okay, put the genocide aside. Why does Israel have to have a military advantage and we have to provide it? Remember, their population is the size of Papua New Guinea. If Cory Booker was on Meet the Press going, Papua New Guinea must have a qualitative military edge. We've only sent them $320 billion and we've only attacked 7 of their neighbors and that cost us $8 trillion, but we have to give more to Papua New Guinea. you would have said, has he escaped a mental asylum? And of course, the reason why they're doing this is because they're not mental, they're corrupt. He's been bribed by Israel his whole career. Anna, back to you.
The first time anyone in our government uttered anything about maintaining or protecting Israel's military edge was when Lyndon Johnson informally committed to upholding Israel's qualitative military edge.
After Kennedy was killed.
Yep, very true. Interesting things happened in that assassination and the aftermath of it. Anyway, but the argument in favor of this is, well, poor little Israel. I mean, it's in such a hostile region of the world. It must have the strongest military in that region in order to defend and protect itself. Okay, so it wasn't until about 20 years ago that it became codified rather than just be an informal announcement by the president. And so in 2008, Congress formally codified Israel's qualitative military edge through the Naval Vessel Transfer Act, requiring that any American arms sales to other Middle Eastern countries not adversely affect Israel's military superiority. For decades, pro-Israel advocacy groups, including the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, have lobbied to preserve and expand such commitments to Israel's defense superiority. This lack of accountability continues to reshape the Middle East. By design, QME, qualitative military edge, blocks any Arab or Muslim majority country from reaching parity with Israel. True security, this is written by Jamie Hayes over at antiwar.com. True security cannot rest on permanent superiority. It requires accountability, reciprocity, and restraint. The very qualities QME discourages, and I agree wholeheartedly on that. I want to end on one last video from Cory Booker in that interview with Kirsten Welker. So let's hear him double down on his support for aid toward Israel.
So just to be very clear, you would vote to approve arms sales for Israel in a future entanglement if you thought that was necessary?
Again, we have a long-standing commitment to Israel having a qualitative military edge. I will continue to support that. I will not support this kind of war. And we have a nation now that's looking at our disastrous president, a disastrous leader of Israel, who in this war are hurting our nation, their nation, and that region. I cannot support this war effort.
A majority of Democratic voters would like to stop aiding Israel. 56% of Democrats say the US should decrease military aid to Israel, including 35% who say the practice should stop altogether. Cenk?
80% of Democrats have a negative view of Israel, but Cory Booker says, no, we have to take more of your money and give it to them. And not only that, we have to borrow money from China and you have to pay the interest rate the rest of your life, and so do your kids and grandkids, because we can't have the Israelis borrowing from China. Their money and their lives are so much more precious than yours. So shut up and give me your wallet, otherwise you're an anti-Semite. Okay, and you know what Cory Booker said in the leaked audio that we found out about his relationship with the AIPAC president? He said, quote, we talk often and quote, text message back and forth like teenagers. That's so cute. I want to give you his AIPAC tracker, even though I want to tell you that this is greatly misleading. So he's gotten at least $846,000 from the Israeli lobby. But the reason why that's misleading is, as we found out through Larry Ellison's emails, the great majority of the money that they give is not through means you could track. They give it through dark money. Rabbi Shmuley told me after a debate I had with him, you know, not a grain of salt, a boulder of salt, because I don't trust anything he said. But he told me that Israeli interests gave Cory Booker $26 million behind the scenes. So if you're wondering why their lips are permanently attached to Israel's ass, anything approaching that kind of money will get you subservience and groveling like you see from Cory Booker.
Embarrassing.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.